Hello, everyone, and welcome to Discourse, episode 16. We're continuing on with our worst of and best of list for January. Remembering 2021, the good, the bad, and the so-so. And today we're talking about the worst, specifically the worst movies of 2021. And I can speak for myself only. I definitely saw more bad movies this past year, than good films. Not that we haven't seen some good films this year. I love talking about those movies with you guys, of course, but I saw a lot of trash and I was not happy about it. And I've talked about it on a number of other channels as well, my own, sporadically, and really going into the nitty-gritty details of my list on Double Toastin', which was fun. But time has passed and I remembered some bad movies I had forgotten. I didn't want to remember them, but I did. And I have a top 10. Guys, you can have as many movies on your list that you want. And let me just go ahead. Actually, before I get into the nitty-gritty details of my list, I want to welcome Deadpool, Emily, Austin, Chris Ayers, Kaz, Faye, and Xavier. An absolute pleasure to have you join me today on Discourse. But I'll go ahead and start with my number 10 film, Cry Macho, Clint Eastwood's latest directorial effort. Now, Clint Eastwood, as we all know, he's a talented actor, talented writer, talented director. But, in the last few years, he's produced a number of stinkers, and this is one of them. Hey, let's do a period piece, a father-son story, except the father-son story, the actors have no chemistry with each other, where Clint Eastwood has to go to Mexico to rescue the child of his former employer who fired him years ago. And he waddles to Mexico as a 92-year-old man and fights off gangsters and cartel members and hoodlums and has to keep at bay a very horny female cartel lord or mistress. I don't even know how to describe her. I'm not even sure how she was able to maintain her criminal empire, but it's a thoroughly ridiculous movie and one that I just wanted to end. And it kind of just does out of nowhere. It's like, well, I guess that's happened. So Cry Macho is definitely number 10 for me. Number 9 is Mortal Kombat 2021, a film that I was somewhat looking forward to. It's like, okay, it looks cool. I like the trailers. They look slick. Got all the blood and the gore and the violence and the fatalities. That's all we want, right? And saw the movie. It's like, this could have used, some personality, maybe some comedy in there. Maybe it didn't take itself so seriously. Would it be a lot more fun? It's just, it's a lazy adaptation. I mean, they literally don't even have a tournament in the film. The whole series is about having, karate kung fu tournaments with people from different worlds. You can't even do that. The only character that had any personality whatsoever was Kano, the villain, and he was a piece of shit. And you introduce a new character in Cole Young, who feels like a wannabe Johnny Cage, and he is as boring as any prototypical video game protagonist can be in an adaptation. So I was not a fan of Mortal Kombat. My number 9 worst movie of 2021. Number 8 for me, Army of the Dead. I know this might be on a number of people's best of list, but I really didn't care for it. I felt like, even though Zack Snyder has made a great zombie film in the past in his remake of Dawn of the Dead, I really enjoyed it. A few issues, but overall, the entertaining film. Here, he's indulging all the things I think have hampered the latter half of his career for the past 15 years or so, where it's overly long. He has a kind of dull color palette. And none of the characters have any personality. The movie itself doesn't have any personality. It's confusing. It includes scenes that will be allegedly explained in other material, whether it be comic books or an animated show or a future sequel. It's like, how about you just tell me what's going on in the first movie? That would be great. And yeah, I just, other than the opening credit sequence, which I thought was fun, just didn't care for it at all. I thought it was just kind of a slog, with exception maybe a couple characters. Tig Notaro, who was a replacement for one actor who got in trouble a year or two ago. I thought she was great. She brought the personality I thought was necessary to that film, and just weird camera tricks. I don't know why you have everything behind the actors always out of focus. It kind of made me nauseous to watch. Not a fan of that movie. Number 7, Space Jam: A New Legacy. So I've said before, I'm not one of those kids who love the original Space Jam. No, Space Jam 1, that movie sucks just as much as this film. However, I'll give it to the first movie. At least they just kind of kept it focused on Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes specifically playing, a basketball game about, how the Tunes might become slaves to an evil Danny DeVito alien. I'm trying to remember the premise of the movie. It's been a while. But this one, it's just, hey, let's just show off all the Warner Brothers properties. Let's show off not only the Looney Tunes, but let's show off the Monsterverse. Let's show off Harry Potter. Let's show off the DC stuff. It's all right there. Everyone's getting their little cameo. And yeah, LeBron James, much like Michael Jordan before him, he maybe just didn't have enough to work with, or maybe he's just not as talented actor, but he felt just very uninteresting in that movie across the board, along with all the other characters. It's shocking because you're literally co-starring against the Looney Tunes, and they should elevate your performance, or everyone's performance, and they just don't. I thought it was very disappointing. And fucking Porky Pig raps. He's notorious P.I.G. I couldn't believe that. What's worse than that? Possibly Home Sweet Home Alone is my number 6 film. This is one I forgot I saw during the year. I was like, oh shit, I did see that. And this is the new addition to my list. I mean, like a lot of the Home Alone sequels before it, it just kind of keeps getting worse and worse and worse as it goes along. Like, you cheer for no one, at least in the original film. Or hell, even like the first 2, and I'll even put 3 out there. You like the kid. You like the Kevin McAllister kid. You like the Alex kid. It's like, okay, you're on their side when they're fighting against the burglars, the Joe Pesci, Daniel Stearns, if you will. This one, you don't like anybody. The kid that they got here, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he also starred in Jojo Rabbit, which he was quite good in. I'm sure he's very charming. This is the material they gave him. He's a little shit in this movie. He's like a real life version of Eric Cartman. Just nasty, talking back to his parents, drinking way too much soda, screeching, hollering, didn't like it. And then the 2 burglars, would-be burglars, if you will. Again, they're too stupid for their own good. They should have died in this movie. It was ridiculous. So yeah, not a fan of Home Sweet Home Alone. Definitely of the sequels that I have seen of Home Alone, the worst in my opinion. And now we're getting to the top 10 here. Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City. Paid my own money to see this film because I just had to see for myself how bad it was, and it's indeed bad. It made me shocked when I came out of the theater. I didn't think I'd be saying this, but Paul W.S. Anderson made better Resident Evil movies. That whole series, I think, is better. It's not good. I think I like 1 and 3. Give them like Reynolds on that double toasted scale. It's like, for an afternoon watch, go ahead. But, the rest of those movies, at least the ones I've seen, are crap. But I take those movies over Welcome to Raccoon City. Welcome to Raccoon City breaks the cardinal rule, where I shouldn't have to have played the original games to know what the fuck is going on. They just throw random shit in this movie, and it's like, well, you know what that is because you played the games. It's like, no, that is a poor excuse to justify having these things in here. It's a sorry excuse of an adaptation. Well, we've had great video game adaptations over the years, such as most recently this past year, Arcane or Castlevania. Hell, Sonic is better than this movie, infinitely better than this movie. So there's no excuses anymore for bad video game movies, and this movie is a perfect example of what a bad video game movie is. Number 4, Venom: Let There Be Carnage. Don't have a lot more to say about this. I mean, listen, I already have a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I'm not a big fan of the Venom character in general. I think he looks cool, but outside his cool aesthetic, not much personality to him, not many dimensions. And they just lean into the things. At least one thing I will say, like, this movie is definitely shorter than the first Venom movie. It's 90 minutes, but they don't use that 90 minutes well. Mostly it's just used for this awful comedic duo of Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and Venom going up against each other like the Odd Couple, and then having to deal with a scene-chewing Woody Harrelson as Cletus Cassidy Carnage. Yeah, it doubles down everything I really disliked about the first film, and really focusing on that unfunny humor. So Venom: Let There Be Carnage, no thank you. I don't like what Sony's doing with that character. And then moving on to the top 3, Thunder Force, Melissa McCarthy, Octavia Spencer. It's one of those Melissa McCarthy comedies where she's fat and she falls down and we're supposed to laugh, except I'm not laughing anymore. I'm done with it. I know you have this superhero premise. You're trying to be a critique. Like they fancy them like, we're going to be like Deadpool. We're going to take the piss out of the superhero genre. It's like, no, you took a piss on it. Sure, along with yourselves, and just being annoying and grating. And relying on that Judd Apatow style of filmmakers like to call it. We're just going to set a camera down the room and have the actors riff and improv for 4 hours, and we'll cobble whatever the best bits were together and put in the movie, even though it wasn't good to begin with. So yeah, a really unfunny comedy. Number 2, The Matrix Resurrections. Listen, I love that original Matrix film, as you guys know. I think it's great. Not a fan of the sequels in any capacity, but I was somewhat excited. I was tentatively excited for the Matrix Resurrection. I thought, okay, we're gonna get. It's gonna be maybe it's gonna be a fresh take. It's been nearly 20 years after the original movie, more than 20 years after the original movie. It's like, okay, they're gonna come back. There's a lot they can explore, and what we just got, I thought, was a heavy meta mess of a movie. It's like, we're going to leave into meta. We're going to comment on the fact that the previous Matrix films happened were in this world. They were video games developed by Neo. And I think it got so up its own ass. It forgot to tell like a coherent story. And it's even if you're not able to tell a coherent story, because yes, I know that the Matrix is for a lot of people confused them back in the day, including the people that were trying to get star in it. But I don't know. I felt like at the same time, it's still, you're going to tell a fun sci-fi adventure with interesting characters, and they can't even do that. Even the actors they have replacing, legacy characters like Morpheus and Agent Smith, they're just not up to snuff. They strip out the personality from them. So you could even had a muddled, confusing narrative, but at least you would give me someone to look to or hang on to through this ridiculous over-the-top sci-fi journey. I would love to have had that, but I didn't think they did that. And the action, surprisingly, I thought, okay, if none of that works, then we're going to get some good action. And no, I just don't think it's choreographed very well. If it is, I couldn't tell because the editing's so bad. So big disappointment for me there. But number one, as you know, I've said many, many a time, nothing was able to beat this. It was early in 2021. Tom and Jerry, Tim Story's Tom and Jerry. It literally opens, the first 30 seconds feature rapping CGI 2D abomination, 3D abomination pigeons. And I was like, oh God, here we go. And it just indulges in all the things that make those other kind of live action animated hybrid movies like the Smurfs or like Alvin the Chipmunks unbearable. No one is likable. The anime characters are just shadows of them of their former selves, like they were in those original specials, and they're just annoying. Everyone's an asshole in this movie, and if everyone's an asshole, then how can I even not even relate, but just enjoy it? Like, I know I've had films where you have an asshole character and they're annoying and stuff, but at the same time, it's like, at least there's other things in the movie you can appreciate. Not this one. I really just like, and also a little racist at times. Like you have the street cats and they all sound black and Puerto Rican. I was like, what the hell is going on with that? It's weird. It's Tim Story, who is a black man. Yeah, I despise Tom and Jerry. It's my number one worst movie of 2021. And I wanted to, just open it up for discussion. Has anyone seen Tom and Jerry? What are your thoughts on Tom and Jerry?
Yes, I've seen it, and yeah, I don't think there's anything I can add to it. It's the textbook example of a god-awful kids movie based on an old 60s cartoon, where they're trying to modernize it, but in doing so, they strip away everything that made it work in the first place, and it's just loud and obnoxious, and you hate everybody, and you just want it to end, but it won't fucking end.
It won't end. Like one of the great things about those originals, shorter is better, where in those original Tom and Jerry shorts, they were like, what, 6-7 minutes long, and that was it.
They didn't need a story. They were just simple cat, mouse, whatever, Tom or Jerry whooping each other's asses, whatever. But short, sweet, and simple. Like, why did it need to be an hour and a half? A story like that whole movie just made me angry.
Because we need to talk about Instagram, and we need to make references about TikTok and Twitter and Netflix. Because we needed all that. Needed that good old-fashioned and modern, not even old-fashioned,
kids don't need this crap.
Humor.
Just let them turn their brains off for an hour and a half. Just let them watch these two slapstick characters. I don't know if anybody else watched the 40s cartoons or whatever, Boomerang back in the day, but that shit's still awesome. It's still there for us to watch, but it did not need to be a movie.
No. It rarely ever does. Yes.
I have 2 questions. Is it better than the old cartoon one where they talked? And
I never seen it.
Oh, you've never seen it?
Don't watch it.
This is worse. I've seen that one, and this is worse.
And secondly, would it have been better if the pigeons came in and were rapping the intro from the John Leguizamo Pest than what they were rapping?
Maybe that would have been better.
The pigeons might have made that slightly redeemable if they came in and sang the Pest song.
Maybe.
Might have slightly redeemed it a little.
I would have been like, that's a hell of an interesting reference, John Leguizamo's Pest. But overall, no, I don't think it would have improved the quality.
Movie. Like, you already mentioned my worst stuff. Now I'm just going to speak on it now. Fuck Tom and Jerry.
Okay. There we go. Now we know Emily's opinions on Tom and Jerry. Yeah, if anyone else has seen, like, listen, you don't need to see this movie. Don't waste your time. It's a waste of time.
Number one on my worst stuff list for 2021.
Yeah, it is. It is bad. It's not even good for your kids. There's much smarter, more entertaining, better written.
My 2-year-old
movies for
nephew
your
wasn't
children.
even interested in the movie, and he's 2.
Yeah.
Even the worst, like Cars 2 is better than this. Show your kids that over
Sure.
this.
Yeah, no, I think Pixar's Cars 2, which is bad. I would definitely show that over Tom and Jerry.
Show your kids classic Tom and Jerry over this movie.
That too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's better options. There are absolutely better options. But yeah, that is my list. You guys are probably already intimately familiar with it, with me talking about other channels and things. But we can go ahead and we'll start with Deadpool. Deadpool, if you want to go over your worst of 2021 and talk specifically in great detail about your absolute worst movie of 2021.
Well, thanks to you and Double Toast, I tend to avoid the bad movies.
Nice.
But unfortunately, last year there were a few that I did see, some of which I had high hopes for.
Mm-hmm.
So I only have 3. So I'll start with my least worst.
Sure.
Which is Halloween Kills.
Mm.
So I watched it with Master Pancake's riff stream.
Oh, that's
so
fun.
I got to actually enjoy it somewhat, even though it was pretty bad. Well, which is kind of sad because the one before it was just like pretty much every character just turned their brain off and just did the dumbest thing, basically just acting towards a wall.
Yeah.
Throughout the whole movie. I mean, LeBron James is a better actor, but it's just like it feels like the Looney Tunes are just kind of there. Like there really isn't like
they're window dressing.
Yeah, unlike Space Jam 1, where it's like, oh yeah, they're there on the same level as Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But of course, the Looney Tunes takes backseat to pretty much everything else in the movie, which kind of makes it kind of boring and bland. Like I think what you guys have said before, it was just a commercial for HBO Max and for the Warner Brothers catalog.
Yep, that's what it is. It was a long commercial for HBO Max.
And my number 1 is Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I had high hopes for this movie going into it because it looks good. Like they spent money on it.
Yep.
And I enjoyed the original Mortal Kombat movie. It's goofy, but it's fun. I mean, the characters are memorable, and you can definitely tell the actors are trying, even if they don't give the best performances. But this one, like they invested money in it. Like the opening fight scene's fantastic, and then it just goes downhill from there. I mean, you have what's his face, the most boring main character ever shoehorned into a movie. He's so boring I can't remember his name.
Cole Young.
Yeah, Cole, whose secret power is friendship.
That's what it is. That's what his thing is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a literal friendship race, and I'm like, what?
My Little Pony.
I wish that'd be even cooler if you could.
Yeah,
that was his fatality.
At least be interesting. Well, My Little Pony just shows him and just rips somebody's head off. And it's just like you said, there's no tournament, so it's like, wait, why are we even doing this? Wait, what's the point of the tournament if they can just show up and just kill everybody anyway?
Yeah.
And then Kano's the only interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the characters are just kind of there.
Yep.
And a lot of the time, and it's just like, oh, and for some reason they just shoehorn that everybody's magical for some reason, even though before in the past, as long as you're a good fighter, that's all that mattered, even though some were kind of magical. And then like the character of Jax, who like Billy's brother, who I thought was perfect for the role, even though they did nothing with him.
Yeah. He was wasted.
No, his whole thing is he has robot arms. He doesn't need to be magical. Even though they give him like these T-Rex little robot arms. And all of a sudden they become magical and big arms. Like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, like what would have happened if he never had his arms ripped off?
Yeah, he'd just be a normal, boring. He'd be Stryker.
Yeah.
Oh God, Stryker.
Stryker ain't got no what's special about him?
He got nothing. He's a cop, I think. I think that's his thing.
He's got a gun. He can shoot.
He has a gun. He does have a gun. He just pulls it out. It's like, is that legal? Can he do that in the tournament?
Yeah, and it's just, and like all the interesting characters are just kind of boring. Shang Tsu is or Shang.
Shang Tsung.
Yeah. In the original movie, he's a really he's just tuning up the scenery. The original
personality.
Actor.
He has personality.
Yeah, and it's very entertaining. The guy they get him playing this one, he's kind of there.
This doesn't do anything.
And we're also in an age where clearly, like I said, Warner Brothers, they spent money on this.
Yeah,
they could have spent time to make some really cool fight scenes, kind of like the first one and the ending fight scene. But the rest of them just kind of happen, and then they did that weird thing where they're jumping back and forth, so you can't really tell what's going on.
I hated that so much. 100%.
It's interesting because over the decades, Mortal Kombat has made a lot of their characters really fleshed out and interesting.
Sure.
I mean, heck, the latest games are you can watch the trailers as a movie on their own, and it's just as entertaining. I mean, heck, watching the trailers of the most recent games is more entertaining than the actual movie itself. There's tons of story elements here. There's a lot of character that they could utilize, but they didn't. And it was such a disappointment. I was angry after the movie ended. I watched it with my girlfriend because her and I, we right before it came out, Master Pancake again, they did a riff on the original movie. She never saw it before, so we both watched that, and then we watched the new one together. And yeah, we were both angry afterwards, saying wow, the original movie from the 90s, even as campy as it is more entertaining.
It didn't take itself too seriously. And that's why that movie has stood the test of time. It's there's a lot of dated stuff about it and it's corny, but the fact that it was tongue-in-cheek a lot of the time is what made it work. And I think is the reason why it's still viewed by a lot of people as being one of the best, if one of, or one of the better video game adaptations that we've gotten the last 25 or so years. This movie it didn't, despite all the money it had and all the CGI it had, and all the blood and gore that it had, it didn't measure up to the original film because it made the huge mistake of just not making any of their characters fun or interesting. Like Kano was the one. He was it. That actor looked like he was having fun. Everyone else was just straight-faced, stone-faced the whole time. It's like, Jesus Christ, just let these actors, have fun with the material. And yeah, I don't no hate towards the guy who plays Cole Young, but I mean, he's just that. I'm the lead who has to be serious because he's supposed to be the fish out of the water. He's the avatar character. He's the audience avatar character that we see it through his eyes, but he just has the least interesting eyes in the movie to see all of this through. It was boring, much like him. So yeah, does anyone else have any thoughts on Mortal Kombat?
I'll throw some hate at Cole Young. I've seen that guy in other stuff, and he is a terrible fucking actor.
Right,
the moment they announced that he was going to be the lead in this, I was like, oh, this movie, maybe the stuff around him will work and it'll be okay, but nah, it didn't make my list. We're not doing honorable mentions as has been established, but if we were, that would be on there for me.
Right. Yeah. Just we're at a point now. We're at a point now where we shouldn't settle for mediocre or bad video game movies, and we got several this past year, which is very frustrating. There's no excuse anymore. There's no excuse. You can take this seriously and look what people have been able to accomplish over these last few years. Something with Arcane, which people are calling one of the not just one of the best video game adaptation of all time, but one of the best things to come out of 2021, just from the the medium of animation of television or a streaming series. So, but moving on from Deadpool, Emily, you said Tom and Jerry was your worst one. Did you have anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't put them on worst list. I mean, they just didn't stand out as anything memorable to me. Like Last Night in Soho, the trailer for that made it seem like it was way more interesting than it actually was, and sitting down watching the movie, it was just so slow and boring. And then when the big reveal happened, it was just I'm like, really? That's where you went with this? I was like, it made it seem like it was kind of this time travel kind of thing. I was just like, no, it's nothing like that at all. And they never really explain what the fuck is up with that whole mirror thing at all at the end. But I guess you don't need to. It's Edgar Wright after all. But and then say Venom was another movie I didn't really care for.
Yeah.
It was just what are they doing with that? Where are they going with it? What are they it just seemed very. It was some parts of it were entertaining to watch, the Venom stuff and whatnot. But watching Tom Hardy as Venom, it was funny the first time around, but now it's just painful and sad, and I kind of feel bad for the man, but at the same time, you're the asshole who took this role, so I have a right to be angry with you. And I'm like, I like Woody Harrelson's performance in the movie. I honestly thought he was funny and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think they should have kept the crazy ass wig he had at the end of the first Venom movie, and he had that hairstyle.
Ronald McDonald here.
But it was just in desperate need of a script, a story,
Yes.
better supporting characters, Michelle Williams and that fucking hair, just better action, better visuals. Just I'm hoping they improve upon it maybe next time around.
I have not seen Last Night in Soho, but I will eventually watch it.
I don't want to spoil it, but
no, it's fine. No, totally fine.
It was just disappointing me.
To your point about Venom, you're right. I mean, that movie just doesn't really have a story. Like, what is the story of that film? It's like, okay, I get he has to fight Carnage, but other than that, like, what else is happening? Like, what's Venom?
All over the place.
What's Venom? What is Venom Eddie's arc in this? Is it just that they're like, well, I mean, you know, people have been saying, well, they're kind of like, you know, they're a couple. You know, they're just dealing with couple issues. Is that what it is?
They were a couple going through a serious rough patch. I'm like more interested in what's going on with Venom and Eddie here and them fixing their fucking problems over what the fuck else is going on in the movie. Like,
yeah, it
like
was
a turd in the wind.
Like a turd.
But yes, like a turd in the wind. That line.
Yeah. That still holds true. That line to this guy. No doubt about it. Well, thank you. No, thank you for sharing. Interesting bringing up Last Night. So, because I know it's on a lot of people's best of list, but I have not seen it myself. So I wonder if I would feel the same way you do. But moving on from Emily to Osnick, your worst of 2021 and your worst movie of 2021, Osnick.
Okay, so I really have 6, and even then, the first 2 are kind of more or less just disappointment just movies that stuck out for either being bad or they had parts I like, basically.
Sure.
The number 6 is Black Widow. I also didn't see like Venom 2 and a bunch of other stuff this year, so is Black Widow. Mm-hmm. This movie should have come out like maybe before Infinity War. It just felt look, I liked Florence Pugh and David Harbour, but like compared to like all the other Marvel stuff we got this year, it was kind of just the weakest thing retrospectively. And it just felt like, well, it set up one thing and it set up these 3 characters maybe. But other than that, it just seemed very weak, and it just the third act turned into goddamn Metal Gear Solid.
Well, all of them are kind of the same.
So my number 5 was Malignant, but what saved this movie is your review of it and Taters himself.
No, thank you.
Which one was Malignant again?
Taters. That's one of Taters.
It was the James Wan one.
I remember. Okay.
The bat, you know. Yeah. I'm trying to remember where I put. Oh yeah, is that? Okay, 3 would be now. My number 3, the Snyder cut. Ugh, 4 hours is too long for a movie, guys.
Yeah, no, like, it is.
It's like I think a 1/6 of your day is 4 hours.
Yeah, 6 of your day. Yep, you're right.
I could only get through 90 minutes of it, and I'm just like, I don't really care. I'm done. I'm tapping out. Yeah. Look, I don't think Justice League is it's a better movie than Justice League or Joss Whedon's Justice League. But I just don't like Zack Snyder's DC universe. I just don't care about any of these characters. I just don't like Superman being evil. I just don't. He lied. He didn't even put it. It's Society lied. It's not even in the movie.
Society. Unbelievable.
I don't like that Joker. The only notable thing of the Snyder cut was Darkseid and his hentai hands, and he had to do 50,000 worlds. It's the only thing I can remember from that movie.
Yeah, 50,000 worlds.
And also just kind of like all the toxic Snyder fans who constantly do horrible things on Twitter, who constantly just yelled at people to make this movie. I'm like, I didn't think they deserved the W, basically.
No, I understand that. I mean? Yeah, no, I do 100%. No, I mean, listen, I'll just to not to interrupt, but just to share my own opinion. You know, like you, I don't like Joss Whedon's Justice League. But is this one better? It is, but still, it's 4.5 hours. It's still 4.5 hours with some very questionable material in it, as you've already gone over, Oscar. Everything like his whole nightmare world, and where Superman is evil, and bring in Joker, and just I'm like, I don't like any of this, and then including Martian Manhunter, and then taken away from scenes when Martian. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Yes, it's better, but I don't know if it's a good movie. I don't know if I would ever say it's a good movie.
and even I think Chris Ayres showed us this was what his plans were for the rest of the DC universe.
yeah.
Like, I don't like any of this. This all sounds bad and boring and lame.
Yep. Yeah. His whole tenure on DC, I'm glad it's done. I know that he has his stands, if you will, his people who will always be, you know, supporting him and in the most toxic and sometimes venomous ways. But yeah, I have not liked his tenure on DC because he doesn't understand who these characters are. But I've talked about that many times before.
My number 2, and it's also Zack Snyder, Army of the Dead.
Yeah.
I forgot about this movie. Legitimately, I watched it. I forgot. This movie, I don't understand why Dave Bautista would take this over the Suicide Squad in a million years. It was boring.
Yep.
I think the problem was, like I'm like, zombies in Vegas. Oh, there's so many fun things you could like. Maybe a bunch of zombies are like playing like lottery machines because that's what they were doing when they die. I don't know. Anything,
sure.
Man.
Yeah,
anything,
so it's kind of like how they did in Dawn of the Dead. They remember things they did when they were alive.
Yeah,
sure. Comedic. It's just
like comedic things. Like, you know, maybe a bunch of them are like they killed a bunch of zombies by like toppling playing cards or like a part where like something happens in that like fake like I could write better parts of this movie. Or like there was like a king zombie. Why was not the king zombie dressed up as Elvis? I'm like,
yeah.
And all these characters that you've seen in other action movies, you've seen them in Aliens, you've seen them in Commando, you've seen them in so many other things. They're just basically tropes. I don't understand Zack Snyder's weird obsession with zombie babies. It's always
he loves that shit. That's him. He loves that.
The acting, besides maybe Tig Notaro, who's like CGI'd in, is good. I don't know why they bring up the fact that it was in a time loop, but then it turns out they never. I'm like, why would you say that? Why would you say that if it doesn't set anything? It's just pointless. It's just pointless movie. Why are some of the robots zombies robots or vice versa? I don't understand.
So weird.
And like, it's just like you had a good like Dead Rising 2 did this years ago. Zack Snyder, come on, man.
Oh, very much so.
I'm like, crack a joke. Where's a joke? Make a joke. Give me a smile. Like, you have a zombie tiger. Do something. You did one thing with that.
Yeah.
Sorry, that creepy baby from fucking.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't get what his obsession with zombie babies are. I don't. And it just, it's bad. That's all I have to say. Don't
weird's
watch
gonna
it.
come out about that, man.
I've never seen Army. I never saw the one about the safe cracker guy. They did a safe.
Yeah, everyone was asking me about it. I never saw it.
I heard it was I didn't hear really anything, but I was just disappointed because I'm like, you had a good idea, man. This you zombies in Vegas are a good idea, and you just kind of squandered it.
Mm-hmm.
And then my number 1, which I kind of ranted about in our best movies, was Space Jam 2.
Oh yeah.
Again, kind of the same point I made. It's just a big commercial for something I can't even buy. What's the point?
That's great for you.
What's the point? And it's like, why is anything in this movie anything? I don't get any. Look, I know this movie has people who enjoy it. I understand. I think the Looney Tunes are good, but go out. Your kids deserve better. Go show them like the original Looney Tunes short. Go show them like the new Looney Tunes shorts they have on HBO Max. Go show them like anything else. Show them Looney Tunes babies for crying out.
Yeah, do that one. Who framed Roger Rabbit? That's what I've been saying.
That's another one. Show them. I would take the original Space Jam because at least that one was selling like basketball shoes and Big Macs and Wayne Knight and whatever. This is just garbage. This is just absolute. They saw Ready Player One. And it's like, hey, we could just do that and just do Space Jam. And then we're like, okay, but what's the story? What's the plot? It's like, well, we get a basketball player, and then Don Chino will be there, but we'll never make a joke that he looks like. Why does he look like Don Chino? They never say it. Ugh. This movie just makes me mad, and I don't know why.
No.
And Porky Pig Bappy was a horrible idea.
Notorious P.I.G., as he is known as.
Oh. And I don't know why. Like I like Eric Bauza. I like the guy who does Little Looney Tunes. I don't know why the heck Little Bunny's being played by Zendaya, and she has is the probably least emotion and most uncartoony of all of them.
Oh, she's being voiced by Zendaya because it's Zendaya. That's why.
Yeah, I get that, but I'm just like.
Was there a scene in the movie that you did like?
I liked the one part when we got to see Fury Road because I got reminded of a better movie I could be watching.
Oh, sure. That actually made sense.
Yes,
that actually made sense with Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. It's like, oh yeah, they would be, I guess, in Mad Max.
Like even so, again, I said like the Matrix. We've seen that joke was done in Shrek. The Austin Powers. I'm like, what is this guy? Come on.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's like, why wasn't Sylvester in like I don't know, Cats? That would have been funny. If he was in Cats or something.
They it's like they could have. They had some interesting ideas to play with. They just chose not to do them or act upon them. It was like you said, it was a commercial for something that you can't buy. Or the majority of it was.
I did laugh at the Michael B. Jordan joke, but I'm like, I feel like I could have written that. I'm like, that's the easiest joke you could make. Come on.
Yeah.
Well, also, the movie's a missed opportunity because they have all these properties they can pull from, and the whole movie that they're just in the background.
Yeah. Why aren't they playing basketball instead of these weird CGI abominations?
Yeah, that would have been way more interesting. Characters from different movies and the whatever the fuck Warner Brother owns now. That would have been way more.
Oh yeah, why are the gang from Clockwork Orange in
LeBron
there?
Literally.
Oh yeah, the Moogs on the court.
Yeah, LeBron literally makes up a dream team. And and those characters just show up in the background.
Yeah, they're just cameos or background characters.
They could have literally did a thing where it's just a tournament of all the different Warner Brothers characters. And you could see all these different teams. That would have been a lot more interesting.
I guess Warner Brother has an anti-tournament plot. They didn't have a tournament of Mortal Kombat. They didn't have a tournament.
They don't like tournaments. Games. Yeah, exactly.
They're saving it for the sequels.
Movies.
Yeah. No. Also, good choice, Austin.
Also, they should have had Tiny Toons or the Animaniacs in this or something.
That'd be funny. That would have been cool.
That would have been cool. Like,
but it would have been another background thing. That's what they would have turned it into. It's like, oh, there they are in the background, and now they're gone. Yeah. So, yeah, Space Jam. Listen, I'm right there with you, man. I don't get it. I just don't get it. I didn't get the first one. Like, okay, I maybe the only thing is, it was Michael Jordan. He was the biggest basketball star of all time.
Well,
and that's
even then they had commercials with him. Like it was a thing at least.
Yeah, I know.
It feels like they're trying to cash in the 90s. Like it's just like we're banking off those 90s kids wanting to see this.
Maybe I don't think it worked out for them.
You know what the funny part is? LeBron literally went to play for the Lakers so he could star in this movie.
Oh, really? Is that right?
Yeah, because one of the reasons he chose to move to switch to LA, to switch teams, was because he wanted to act more, and this was one of the reasons.
Oh, I had no idea. Oh, interesting.
That's tragic.
That is sad. Oh, jeez.
Well, didn't work out. He made a lot of money, but it's not good.
He's still a rich man at the end of the day.
Yeah. But thank you, Oscar, for sharing your worst of list and your worst movie of Space Jam, A New Legacy. Moving on for you, we'll go ahead and we'll get to Chris Ayers, your top worst movies list and your worst movie 2021, good sir.
Okay, I was able to make a 10. A couple of these I can just burn through in like one sentence, so I'm not going to take too long, I don't think. Number 10, Red Notice. It's The Rock, Ryan Reynolds, and Gal Gadot sleepwalking through the most generic action plot ever, doing their usual stick. The Rock is an unstoppable badass. Reynolds is constantly cracking jokes and breaking the fourth wall, and Gal Gadot's hot. That's it. There's no reason for it to exist. Number 9, Wrath of Man. Jason Statham revenge movie. Sounds pretty cool, but it's so fucking boring. Like, I fell asleep so many times throughout this movie. I don't even remember like what the plot is. Like,
the plot of Wrath of Man, I think. Oh, hang on. His son got murdered while he was out on a job together or whatever. They were driving together, and his son got. I'm just remembering what little bit I do remember from the movie.
Eyes are already glazing over, so thank you, Alex.
I'm like, his son gets killed, and he wants revenge, and he goes out to. It's basically Taken and some Mission Impossible shit. It's just a bunch of movie plots all put together. I got through the movie, and it was just save yourself the trouble. Don't watch it.
Yeah. Number 8, Chaos Walking. It's a YA dystopian movie that probably would have done fine had it come out like 6 years ago when it was apparently supposed to, but it's kept getting pushed back and reshot so much until they finally just dumped it. It's basically just pick a random plot point from Hunger Games or Divergent or Maze Runner or that one with Chloe Moritz that I don't even remember the fucking name of, and just like jumble them up and just throw them into a randomizer, and that's basically what you have with this. Number 7, Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City.
Yeah.
You guys have talked about it already. It's a horrible adaptation of the games. Like, as someone who has only played a couple of the games, I didn't know what the fuck was going on most of the time. It was just a bunch of actors running around on cheap sets. References, I guess. I don't know. Like, yeah, it's just, I don't get it. Why does this exist? Speaking of why does this exist, number 6 is... let me get the fucking list up, because I fucking deleted it. Here it is. Number 6, Snake Eyes. Yeah, completely pointless attempt to reboot and breathe new life into the G.I. Joe franchise. Goes horribly wrong. Henry Golding, who we know can act, can't in this. Like, his accent changes so many goddamn times. Sometimes he's American, sometimes he's British. It's a mess. Samara Weaving is weirdly terrible in this. Like, if this was the first thing I ever saw her in, I would be like, that is the worst actress I've ever seen in my life. And the action, which is like the most basic thing you'd think they would get right, is filmed and shot and edited so horribly. Like, it makes Taken 3 look like John Wick. That's how goddamn bad it is. Number 5, Dear Evan Hansen. Yeah, it's been talked to death about how this grown-ass man, Ben Platt, is trying to convince us that he's a 17-year-old high school student, and it's not working. Yeah, that's been talked to death, but something else that really bugged me about this movie is that not only is he a terrible character who lies his way to what he hopes is happiness, but this whole plot working at all requires literally every other character to be the most gullible moron on the fucking planet. It makes no sense. The only positive I can say is that Caitlin Dever, as the girl he manipulates into becoming his girlfriend, basically, she really does like try and gives the best performance in the movie. And I did like a couple of the songs, but other than that, terrible. And it's one of the most uncomfortable like movie-going experiences I've had in a while. Number 4, Tom and Jerry. We've already talked about this. Awful kids movie. Don't know why they keep making these. Bastardization of a classic cartoon. That whole thing. Number 3, Home Sweet Home Alone. This is another legacy sequel that is horrible and pisses on the legacy of the original. Not only do you find yourself kind of feeling sorry for the burglars, but you're actively rooting for them to kill the kid. Like, I'm honestly offended that you compared him to Cartman, because at least Cartman's funny. Like, this kid is so fucking obnoxious, and again, the kids, he was awesome in Jojo Rabbit, but in this, like, the material they give him is just horrible, and he's so unlikable. And yeah, the whole movie is just Number 2, music. This is basically Radio, but with a little white girl. And yeah, as somebody who's on the spectrum, I was so fucking furious throughout this entire movie. There's so much shit that happens. Like, the actress, like, I don't want to pin it on her completely, because she was apparently like forced into doing it or whatever, but she's so over exaggerated in her tics and her expressions and the noises that she makes. And there's other shit, like, she'll have fits sometimes, and the way they get her to calm down is by putting her face down on the floor and then kneeling on her back until she calms down. It's like, that's not how that shit works. Are you fucking serious? And yeah, the only thing keeping it from reaching the number 1 spot is that Kate Hudson does try, but it's not enough. It's really not enough. And then my number 1 is Venom, Let There Be Garbage. Yeah, those of you who have known me for a while know that I detest the Venom movies. They are the personification of everything that I hate in any kind of filmmaking, in terms of sheer laziness and incompetence and lack of care and effort into every facet that you could possibly fuck up in making a movie. Yeah, Tom Hardy, he's reached this point where every time I see him in anything, I just grit my teeth and prepare for the worst. And he always manages to surpass that and be far worse. And yeah, he is just so goddamn annoying. The dynamic between him and the symbiote is insufferable to sit through. Like, you don't like either of them. Like Eddie is just an idiot and a pushover, and Venom is cool. Like he's relaxed until he's randomly psychotic, and it's like, why are we supposed to like either of them? It reaches the point to where I'm actually rooting for Woody Harrelson as the serial killer to win. It's like, please, just kill him, and just so we can end this movie, please. And yeah, Woody Harrelson is going apeshit throughout this entire movie. They waste Naomi Harris. Like, I'm a big fan of hers, and she is so wasted in this fucking movie. It's a thankless nothing role with no meat for her to chew on. Yeah, and Michelle Williams, I don't know why she continues to waste her time in these movies and give a performance that feels like something out of a badly dubbed Italian horror movie. Like, she so clearly just does not want to be there. Honestly, the only character in any of these movies who feels like anything resembling an actual human is her boyfriend. I can't remember the actor's name, but it's like, he feels like an actual guy that I would bump into on the street. And
Sure.
With.
He feels like a genuine human.
Yeah. And yeah, the action is horribly filmed. It's everything I hated about the first movie cranked up to 1,000. Andy Serkis, directing wise, does not come out well here, either because it's either he doesn't have a guiding personality as a director, or if he does, he wasn't able to assert himself in order to make this movie his own. Like, I couldn't tell you any of the differences between the approach to this movie and the first one. Like, they both just feel like vanity projects for Tom Hardy's to roll around on the fucking ground, make all the stupid faces and stupid noises he wants, and to just mug constantly and just... Oh my god, I want to go fucking scream into a pillow right now just talking about this.
There it is.
I almost afraid to ask, was there a scene you liked at all in the movie?
No!
Don't, Emily, don't! What are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm sorry!
What are you doing?
Don't hurt me! I'm sorry!
I'm already mad at you having Soho on your worst of list. Don't continue that.
I know. I thought that was going to set him off. That's funny. No, man, listen, I'm right there with you. You know, I'm no Venom fan, and I really dislike that movie, and the one that came before. It has me very concerned about what Sony has in store of the rest of their standalone superhero films, or I don't even say they're standalone. They're very much connected now to the MCU. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But what they have offered up so far has been shit.
yeah. And something else that I want to get off my chest, that every time I hear somebody say it, it just makes me want to pull my goddamn hair out, is that, oh, it's just a stupid popcorn movie. What did you expect? It's like, fuck you. We can have so much more from we can have stupid popcorn movies that are still like really well done and fun. Like, at least half of the Fast and Furious movies are genuinely like a lot of fun to watch.
Sure.
But then there's this where it's just, there's no passion, no creativity, no like actual effort being put into anything. Honestly, like, the best way I can describe it is like, so years ago, Brian Salisbury from One of Us, I can't remember which review it was, he said something on about one movie where it's like, wow, that's perfect. He talked about how, like, every once in a while, yeah, I'd like to go to McDonald's, you know, because it's cheap. And when I go there, I am fully aware that the person behind the counter does not give a flying fuck about me or my problems. But the job isn't difficult. Like, just make the food, give it to me, and I'll be on my way. So when you get your food and you open the bag, and literally everything in your order is not only wrong, but it's not even prepared correctly. Like, the fries aren't fried. The drink is just a cup with a couple of ice cubes in it. The burger is just a raw hunk of meat slapped between two moldy pieces of bread. Your natural reaction is to get upset about that. But what did you? What did you expect? I expect people to try. That's what I fucking expect. That's literally the bare minimum of what I ask when you're making a movie. And these movies actively go out of their way to not do that. And that's inexcusable to me, more than anything.
There it is. That was very, very, very. I liked it. I liked how much detail you went into that last one. Very cool. There you go. Now we know why Venom is bad. You put it all out there. I got nothing to say. I got nothing to add.
I walked away. I had to laugh.
Get those Venom supporters, like the one Venom supporter.
I don't think there's only one guy left. He's going, "Why are you yelling at me?" I think that's what he's saying right now. Oh Lord. Stefan, Ducking Henry. But first of all, good to have you here along with Thunder League. Welcome. I saw you guys coming here. But Stefan, if you want to take a moment, talk about your worst of and your worst movie of 2021.
Yeah, I don't know how to follow that. I'd have to say my worst movie of 2021 is definitely The Little Things. You know, not for anything, I didn't watch many movies in 2021. To be honest with you, it was a very TV show heavy year. So just such great TV shows coming out, whether it be animated or live action. But I saw The Little Things, and you just look at the cast and you just say, you know, this is going to be something.
Sure,
and,
of course.
It ended up wasting hours of my time. Bad. I fooled myself all the way till the end, thinking like something's going to happen. We're going to get just that great moment in the middle of all this mediocrity, and that never happens. The big twist just ends up not being a twist at all, and it tries to be clever about it and completely falls on its face in doing so.
And just to be clear, this is the movie with Denzel Washington and Jared Leto and Rami Malek.
Yes,
this mystery thriller.
Correct.
Right.
That's correct. Denzel Washington is an amazing actor, truly one of my favorite actors, and he's wasted. He's doing his Denzel thing, you know, going around being old and sad, but yet somehow still charming. Rami Malek is just, his eyes are bugged out. You know, he's nervous all the time, and he just gets more crazy as the film goes on in a boring way. I don't know how someone becomes more crazed and yet gets more boring. It's impressive, really. And Jared Leto is just a creep.
So Jared Leto is Jared Leto.
Consistent.
Right, exactly. And then it does have a cult. That Jared Leto, the only thing he's guilty of is just being a creep. There's no cleverness there. There's no he's just a creep. And that's the movie. I just summed up the entire movie. I
remember I feel like a lot of people feel the same way you do about this film. That was one of those films that just came and went. Like, it was out, they had those three big, you know, lead actors, and then nothing. Probably because it was just generic, or like as you were saying, just a waste of time for everybody. So I remember, because that was one of the ones, that was one of the first ones they were leading with HBO Max with, because it's in the theaters and it's on the streaming service. That was very early.
Exactly.
But I just remember watching the trailer. I was like, yeah, I'm not into what I'm seeing. I just
that was a big seller.
Right. Right.
And I get what you're saying about the trailer, but something about it, the atmosphere, it drew me in. And
right.
The movie has this way of ratcheting up tension, but it never delivers. So I think that's truly why it made it to the top of my personal list. Because when you tease somebody for an entire 2 hours, and then at no point you have anything come of it, that person's going to be pissed.
Yeah. No. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't think that's been on anyone's list yet. So I'm glad we have like a wide variety of picks, even within the list themselves, or for our number ones. Even some films I haven't even seen.
Movie.
Yeah, so that was a good one. I know that was on a number of people's worst of lists. I think even that might have been on Corey or Martin's list on Double Toasted. So yeah, you're not alone in your dislike and your disdain for that latest one. It did have a lot going for it, just didn't capitalize on anything. So no, thank you for bringing that up.
I was going to mention one thing about Jared Leto's performance, because I also didn't like the movie either. But one thing I would say is that I think Jared Leto played a better Joker in this movie than he did in the DCEU or whatever. So
would you agree with that, Stefan? Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, but I'd say that it was still boring. Yeah. It was still boring. You know, it
was boring, but it wasn't as bad as what we saw.
It was very boring.
That's funny.
I played a better Joker in Gucci.
Oh, I know. With yeah. When he's playing Wario, he has the Joker suit in that.
He could be Wario if they ever do a live action Super Mario. He already got the
they can make it work.
down.
They can make it work. It can happen.
I just need a good strong whack.
They can do it. He can deliver that. No, very nice. Thank you for bringing that movie up. That was great. And Thunder Lee, moving on to you, your worst of list and your worst movie of 2021.
I didn't really make much of a list because
that's fine.
There was a lot of things happening tonight, but I have two movies that I keep in mind. One of them being Mortal Kombat. I feel like that movie was severely underwritten, and all this talk about a tournament. Ooh, there's a Mortal Kombat tournament, and we get to see none of that.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest problem of the movie. Just characters being underwritten. This hype about a tournament that never happens in the movie, and also I feel like the villains just felt flat throughout the whole movie.
100%.
So there's that, and then Resident Evil. I feel like I was watching a freaking Universal Halloween Horror Nights freaking movie because like everything felt fake in that movie to me, and characters felt like they weren't the characters from the game, and it's just like there's too many references to the game itself that could have been utilized. Heck, I just found out that freaking in a deleted scene you're supposed to see a tyrant head in there, which I'm like, oh, but you could have his head but not him in the game, in the movie. Yeah, it's just the movie's a mess.
It's cheap
in general. Yeah, and it's extremely cheap. Like I said, it could have been a freaking Halloween Horror Nights freaking attraction. So that was my big no movie of the year.
Yeah, no, same. I can totally understand that being number one's list. I mean, it's probably number 5. It's in my top 5, and it did everything that I was worried it would do. And just one of my biggest concerns is it has the smallest budget of all the other previous Resident Evil movies. And you're combining the stories of 2 games. And it's like, you're not going to be able to cover all of that appropriately. And now with the budget that you have, and it's like, already at the start, I'm like, you're doing this wrong. And lo and behold, they did everything wrong. They messed up in every regard that they could have, whether it was the characters or the action or the monsters or the setting. It just felt cheap.
And not only that, the director was like, "Oh, I'm a big Resident Evil fan. This is the game for the
fans, for the true fans.
This is for the true fans." And I'm over here, and like, yes, I started playing at 6, but I went back to all the other games and enjoyed them, and I know the lore, watching 2-hour videos of the lore and stuff. But honestly, if you want me to be very honest, this is just this is not for the fans. This is just another cash grab, just like the other ones.
Yeah.
But at least the other ones felt, to me, I enjoyed those. Because, they were going their own route. Even though they had their own little, monsters and stuff in there.
What I'll say is, at least for the Paul W. Anderson films, at least he had a vision. I mean, it's a vision I didn't like, but he was consistent. Whether he was directing or when he had other people direct, it was very much his initial ideas for what this series would be, and that was showcased all the way through. So it was consistent in that way. I mean, I didn't like it, but it was consistent.
His wife was his vision. That was
his wife, the wife. Yeah, he makes him and his wife movies. He loves making those. Where this one, it just feels like this kind of a bastardization of the original material in those games. And not to say that even Resident Evil has great stories. They don't. They're bad. You could say they're bad. I mean, it's a B movie. That's what it is. A B movie with like a big budget. But those characters have a lot of personality. A lot of their stuff that they do is very tongue in cheek. So it's supposed to be over the top. And that's what this movie was missing. You had so many characters in here and no one felt interesting. No one felt fun. You even forget. Like, oh shit, we're going back to the mansion. Oh my God. Yeah. I totally forgot that was in the movie. You're always like, oh yeah, Jill and fucking Chris and Wesker in this. Okay. And they don't feel anything like their characters in the original games, which is like, try to at least do that. I'm not saying you have to adhere to them because, you change things in adaptations. There's no doubt about that. That's fine. But try to adhere to the personalities of the characters and they just choose not to. So no, totally great choice, Thunderly. I'm right there with you. One of the absolute worst films of 2021. And now moving on from Thunderlee, Kazfei, your list of the worst movies of 2021 and your worst film of 2021.
Okay, so I have movie on my list. I didn't watch that much in 2021, and I knew what movies to avoid because of Double Toasted, much like a few others on here. So my number 5 is He's All That, which is the remake of the 90s film She's All That, and I actually thought it was going to be in like my top 2 or 3. It did have some moments that were surprisingly charming. Unfortunately, the lead, Addison Rae, I think it is, she's a TikToker, and I get that's a perfectly valid form of making money, but she can't act for shit. I'm sorry. Man, there are some scenes where she's supposed to be crying, and it is so cringy. It's like something from an SNL sketch. It doesn't work. There are some other moments. I think other people are carrying the scenes for her. Like there are some.
Casper, I think your mic might be going out. Your mic keeps going in and out.
Okay, hang on a second. I'm sorry.
No, take your time. No, it's totally fine.
What I was trying to say is there are some good background characters here, and some actually good scenes that makes me think like this movie could have been something. They were trying to make a commentary about influencer culture, clout chasing, TikTok, all this other stuff, but it all turned out to be pretty shallow. I think this movie was written by people who don't understand typical type of issues that you have with these types of movies. And I went into it thinking we didn't need a remake to She's All That, and then came out of it thinking, okay, I wish we could have had a good one. Although worth noting, Rachel Lee Cook and Matthew Lillard are both in this movie a little bit, and they were in the original, and they did what they could with the material they had. Moving on to number 4 is Space Jam 2: A New Legacy. There's not much I can say that hasn't been said already, except it's notably to me is even worse than He's All That. But yeah, it's just capitalism at its absolute peak, even compared to the first movie I liked as a kid. So, I mean, that's just really sad. I'm not comfortable with this being pushed on children, and it's just they need to stop. Much nobody wanted this, or they did it, but nobody wanted what we ended up with.
Yes, that is almost always the case. Agreed.
Number 3 is a movie called Night Teeth, which I find the title weirdly hard to say, and also it's lame. The movie's lame too. It's a vampire movie that's also trying to be a gangster film that's trying to have some kind of graphic novel aesthetic. There's a lot of neon in it too. A lot of it takes place at night, and at times it feels like a vampire version of Spring Breakers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Megan Fox is in it for all of 2 or 3 minutes until she gets killed off screen. This movie low-key hates women. Like, there are some female characters and like, Bond women have been treated with more respect.
Jesus, that's saying something.
Yeah, like, it just, there's a scene, like, the one scene Megan Fox is in, she, like, it starts to get interesting, her character starts to get interesting, she's killed off screen so quickly, I think she shows up at the end, but no. It's like,
no, it's funny.
and I don't know, there were, like, a few things I liked. Debbie Ryan was in this, she was on Disney Channel, and she did what she could with the movie. It just, yeah, Jessie. She plays like an anti-villain, kind of. Her character's marginally interesting, but it feels like it belonged in a different movie, her storyline and everything. It's sad that maybe this movie could have been something. It's all style, no substance. And then is this really overlong movie called Deadly Illusions, which stars that lady from Sex and the City, Davis.
Oh, okay.
She's like trying to play against type because she used to play a Goody Two-Shoes character, and now she and Ronnie is an obnoxiously rich married couple. Kristen Davis is a famous author, and they have rich people problems, and for whatever reason, she has write they get a new nanny around the same time that becomes like her muse. She becomes like obsessed with this woman, and like it's trying to be some kind of erotic thriller with mystery. Ooh. It's terribly edited, really drawn out, lots of random montages, and also so badly acted. I think they mess around with the sound editing and warp people's voices at times to try and sell the sanity slippage narrative and be like, we're warping reality, but really it's just the fact they need the music and everything else to do the emoting for some of these actors.
Oh,
that's a first.
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, it's fucking weird. It's a funny, so bad it's good movie if you know what you're getting into and maybe watching it with friends. But also, the main character is such a Mary Sue, which is a trope I've talked about before. It's so annoying. I don't even like talking about it. But it's like, it feels like whoever wrote this movie is trying to flex on people. Because like, ooh, look at my mansion. Look at my handsome husband who worships me. And now we have this hot nanny that we're both fooling around with. Like, what the fuck?
I watched
Rich
the movie
people.
Cafe, and it was just hilariously bad to just sit there and watch these characters. I think the music did, as you said, did way more emoting for the film than anything else. And the whole fucking subplot with the nanny by the end of it, it's just like, what the fuck is even going on? It's like, what is this movie? It's just get drunk and just watch it. It's so stupid.
It sounds like a Lifetime movie.
It is.
It does.
Exactly
It does sound
like a
like
Lifetime movie. It plays out like a Lifetime movie.
Sexy.
But it's on
Yeah, and like she has this duality they keep saying throughout the movie, that she's a seductress but also an innocent good girl, but you don't see it until the end, and even then it's badly acted, like Emily said, and they do the music thing again and warping the voices and yeah, I'm not sure what else I can say about it.
That's funny. I got to look at some of these. I haven't heard some of these movies, so I'm gonna check some of these out.
It would be so fun.
Very nice, very nice. And what's your number one?
Okay, so my number one shocked me even. It's Awake with Gina Rodriguez.
There it is.
And I picked this specifically because I was looking for some actual bad movies to bump off some of my list better, I guess. And when I came across Zack Snyder's like Army of the Dead, I saw the runtime and I'm like, fuck that shit. It's like 2 hours, 20 something minutes. And then I see Awake, an hour and a half. I can breeze through that and it'll probably be fairly low on the list. No. Time became irrelevant. It was like there's no plot structure, so I never know where I am in the story, and things just happen. And the only explanation is no one can sleep, so everyone's going all crazy when the plot calls for it, except for whenever the actors need to be lucid, they're lucid. Like, okay, fine, whatever. And it just at one point I paused the movie thinking surely we must be close to the end, right? And it's only 55 fucking minutes in, and it's like not even the boring kind of slow. It's just there are some moments that need to be seen to be believed, like where Gina Rodriguez is trying to teach her kid how to shoot or something. Then all of a sudden it's revealed that her son was standing there, except the daughter never mentions this, and his only reaction is like, whoa, Mom, did you just shoot at me? And it's just so it's just like it's another one of those movies that like many of the others on my list, it's trying to use camera tricks and everything else to cover its ass about how bad it is. Like because Deadly Illusions and Night Teeth, I forgot to mention, and had a bunch of camera angle type shit that I think was trying to make it look more artsy than it was. And I don't know, I mean, Gina Rodriguez did the best she could, but I guess these kids did a good job.
Those kids were horrible to watch.
And yes, very. It's just
did it
then
rip
at
off
the
that
end.
Oh, sorry, Cosme.
Go ahead.
No, didn't this movie rip off that Rooster Teeth show with the like 7 days, or what was it called? I can't remember. Where it had the same plot where they couldn't if you died, you slept, you died, you slept or something. So
A5.
Oh, that was it.
Is this why it seems so familiar? Okay.
Sounds to me like they ripped off
heard of
Nightmare
that
on Elm Street.
Because I thought that's what this would be, and it's just that no one can sleep and they're slowly losing their minds. And like,
the reason why they can't sleep is stupid, though. I mean, I don't want to spoil it if you want to watch this dumbass movie, but it turns out, the real reason why everybody can start falling asleep again, because she finds out that her kids had actually died for a brief moment and they came back to life, and that's why her kids can fall asleep, but no one else can.
Yeah,
it's just dumb.
It is. And I feel like enough time has passed that most of the planet would be dead anyway, and there was no point to transport her daughter, who's like this chosen one of the only people who can sleep, and they're going to this military base where they're just gonna prod her and take her blood, and none of these scientists can fucking think straight anyway. Military people all just start shooting at everybody for no goddamn reason because they need a climax.
Because we're sleepy. That's why.
Yeah, exactly.
There's the church cult scene too, where they try to take her daughter, and they're like, "She's the chosen one. She'll lead us to the light or whatever, some crazy shit." Though, it's just like,
and then they're like, "Let's kill her."
Yeah, they're like, "No, we're just gonna kill her." I'm like, "What the fuck? No."
That's how it usually works eventually.
And Gina and her 2 kids are saved plot armor because there were bullets flying everywhere during the so-called climax of the film, and they are the only fucking people to survive. And then this long drawn-out scene where like they have to kill the mom and resuscitate her. Spoiler alert, but who cares at this point? But it's like, and then the last shot is the camera zooming in on Gina Rodriguez's eye and doing this flippy turny thing, and it just was like the rotten cherry on top of this rotten movie that made me realize just how incredibly insulted the whole thing, and it felt like it was 3 hours.
I know several people that have seen that movie and they really disliked it. I think it missed a lot of people's worst of list because like no one had seen it. Most people probably don't know this movie's existence.
I forgot about these movies.
So because it's a Netflix film, right? It's a Netflix film, Cass. Correct?
Completely forgot.
I remember when it had come out. I think maybe Martin had talked about it on Double Toast, and he did a review for someone talked about it, and how it reminded me of, as you guys brought up, like Rooster Teeth's Day 5, which is similar, somewhat similar, dealing with the sleep, or lack thereof, and what it does to an individual. And if you in this case, no one can fall asleep in the show. If you do fall asleep, you die. But whatever, post-apocalyptic shenanigans and things. But it just seemed derivative, and it just, like as you've clearly indicated, just really annoying characters and relying on cheap filmmaking tricks to try to get some emotion from the audience. So yeah, no, I'm glad you have that on your list. Very, very nice. Excellent choice. But moving on from Kaz Faceless, we'll go ahead and welcome Vanny, by the way. Saw you in there. Hope you're doing well, good sir. We'll have the last 2 people talk about their list, and we'll start with M. Xavier, your worst of 2021.
Yeah, so I'll try to make it quick because it's already been said, but the movie that I chose was Mortal Kombat. It was the biggest thing I could say about this movie, or the main thing that stood out to me about this movie, is that it was just boring. Like, because the one from the 90s, it had a, ridiculous story, bad plot, but the action was really fun and the music was really good. And this movie just did nothing as interesting as the 90s film. The action scenes weren't good. It had CGI blood, which once I saw that, I was like, okay, this movie's not going to live up to my expectations. So yeah, it wasn't a good movie. But I would say this is that I do kind of want to see a sequel. And the reason I do is because, well, one, I hope they learn from their mistakes, but also if they do, because at the end they allude to, Johnny Cage join the movie. And if they do have Johnny Cage, I'm one of the people who would like to see The Miz from WWE play Johnny Cage, because I feel like he would be perfect for that. So that's kind of like why I would want to see a sequel. But and also I just like Mortal Kombat. I just want to see another modern Mortal Kombat movie. So
that's a respectable request.
But yeah, that's my choice for it. I feel like 2021 had more movies that I was just disappointed by than I was like vehemently upset with. But
didn't like
Mortal
worst
Kombat
of. No, that's fair. No,
exactly, and that stood out.
I think across the board, like a lot of people have brought up Mortal Kombat, and for good reason. Because I think the trailers did look good. I was like, I'm liking what I'm seeing. It's like, okay, I like you seem to really be going in on the things that define the game, which is the blood and the gore and the fighting, the fatalities. But that was we just didn't realize that we were hoodwinked, because yes, they had that, but don't think it was used very well. I mean, when they did, they didn't showcase in a great way. And for the most of the movie, just with really boring, uninteresting characters and no personality. And so, yeah. So, fool, don't fool me. Don't manipulate me. You were going to say, Austin?
I was gonna say the only thing I liked about Mortal Kombat is we watched the first raid for a watch party, a Patreon watch party because of it. Because it doesn't it star one of the guys from the raid.
Oh yeah. Shit,
one of the cops.
Taslim.
The actor who
Sub-Zero.
The actor.
Yes, the guy who plays Sub-Zero. That's right. I forgot him too. But yeah, no. That Mortal Kombat is definitely one of the worst of 2021. Listen, when the 95 film is still better than you're just like, Jesus Christ. Come on, guys. You could do better than the 95 film. But no, great choice. Great choice, M. Xavier.
This is a good year to be Paul W.S. Anderson, isn't it?
It is. It's like people realize he has made some good video game adaptations, or in hindsight realize, you know what? The movie wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
Definitely the situation.
Like when Master Pancake Theater can like make fun of it, and you're still like, yeah, they're making fun of it, but I'm still kind of having fun with this. And even with like some of the casting choices, like Christopher Lambert just really just just chewing up all the scenery and having fun with it, and still like, yeah, racially this is not appropriate, but at the same time, like, all right, I mean, it's the 90s. All right, we'll kind of run with it.
Still to this day, one of my favorite gifs of just like old time is the long take of him going and laughing, and they keep the camera on. He goes and he shrugs at the camera like, good enough, okay. And he has this just sad walk. Like it's one of my favorites. He's like, all right, let's get to the next goddamn scene.
Yeah,
I need more of that. I need inappropriately cast Christopher Lambert in these kind of movies, Lambert, if you will. But Vanny, you know what? You're talking right now, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up with you, good sir. Your worst of 2021, your worst movies, and of course, your number one worst film of 2021.
Yeah, I think I'll do my number. I'll go in kind of reverse order because I think everyone's kind of covered the rest of these. Matrix Resurrections for me is my number one, just because it's. I'm sure everything everyone's already talked about, but it's also a sequel that nobody really asked for or needed. So it's not only a useless sequel, but also it just butchers the legacy of an already like waning franchise. Like just absolutely unnecessary film altogether.
Right there with you.
Yeah, my number two actually is going to be Mortal Kombat, because it was a film that we could have used. We could have done a respectful to the franchise sort of film adaptation, but instead we got, again, like very poor decisions throughout in the entire production for it. And I think one of the things where they made, I think the biggest middle finger to the audience was they really pushed the Sub-Zero Scorpion relationship, which is probably one of the most interesting in fighting game history. And it's such a throwaway sort of thing. And then the introduction of Cole, Shang Tsung, I think was a good casting choice, but very poorly done. I think that actor himself could have probably done it had he had more to work with. And it's a film about a fighting tournament that does not actually have a tournament. So again, I have major issues with that one. Number three for me, Eternals. To me, like I've defended a lot of Marvel films. Like I've stood up for Thor: The Dark World. I've stood up for Iron Man 2 and 3. This was the first bad, I think, legitimately bad Marvel film, where the actors looked like they didn't know what was kind of going on. They looked very bored. It was a waste of some very good talent too. I think the actual casting was very good, but again, they just like it's a waste of Kamal Nanjiani. He's so charismatic and he's such a great actor, and given very little to do. I think from a 30,000 foot view, it opens up a lot of the possibilities of what a very bizarre, very sci-fi centric sort of like ethereal kind of like art house Marvel film could do with cinematography and what it opens up for the rest of the MCU universe itself. But the actual execution from a performance standpoint to me was so abhorrently poor or wasted that it was super disappointing. And I went into a very neutral kind of use, because I've heard the mixed bags. Like I saw Corey, who was very much in favor of the film. I've seen reviews where they were like, this is kind of a big waste of time. And so I was like, okay, let me go in and just see what's going to happen. And I walked out of there I leaned more against like, this was just a disappointing film. But hopeful for what they can do in the future. But it's but the one thing I do agree with Corey on was that this is 100% a film that should have been a TV show. Like without a doubt, it would have been much better as a show.
I've heard that as well.
Yeah. Like if everyone had more breathing room for it too. But the first line of dialogue I saw on that was like, it was the first time I was like, uh-oh, this is not good. Like just seeing Jon Stark or Jon Snow or not Jon Stark, Rob Stark and the actual place Cersei, who just have the least amount of chemistry on the planet, and just you can tell they're trying to push romance already. Is like, No. They look like they at best would be like acquaintances at work. But yeah, that was my number 3, and my number 4, which I think I go a little more deep. I don't know if anybody talked about this one. Was Free Guy.
Yeah, you really just like Free Guy. I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, just as like I said, it's just somebody where like where my favorite game of all time is an MMORPG, and I appreciate that they were trying on a few aspects of this. Like they didn't like they still had like the scene of just a guy talking to his mom in his parents' basement, like like the mom meatloaf kind of, or hot pocket kind of moment. It wasn't overplayed, which I can at least respect that, but they it's one of those films where I think you described this when you were talking about the new Home Alone movie, where this could have been solved if somebody with half a brain like just had some foresight for it, like especially with regards to the villain played by Taika Waititi. Like I love Taika Waititi to death too, which is why this is so heartbreaking. But if anybody who's gonna say like I'm gonna buy out this indie studio and use their engine, you throw in $10 million for these guys to shut them up and own the rights, and the problem is solved for Free Guy completely. Like the entire plot is solved in and of itself. I think like Ryan Reynolds just doing his Ryan Reynolds thing, like it's starting to get a bit old. And again, they're treating this like, again, this is like in a universe where the MMORPG is going to make like NBC's morning news. No, it's not. No one would give 3 shits about this. That somebody's like, it's basically the universe is GTA Online, and say like somebody's gaining all this experience by playing a hero. Like if anybody, like any MMO player worth their salt would have known, like the fast way to farm EXP is to do like the heroic deeds. Everybody's a hero. Like the Division 2 and like the Dark Zone alone taught us like, like, hey, here's a competitive area. It makes no sense to play competitively in those areas. You're better off just everyone being cool and ignoring each other to get the best loot, and then like fuck off when you're done. Like that's not how games work. And they just made like they try to be clever or cool about it, and instead they were just like very surface level and just overall boring. It was just and there's moments of greatness I think in there, or there's some interesting ideas for it, about the ideas like creating AI and it's like moral implications for it, and it's so thrown away. And that would have been a much more interesting film if they approached from that point. If like the MMO created the first real AI, what do we do with this kind of information now for it? It would have been a much more interesting film, and Ryan Reynolds could have done a lot more for it, because he's a good actor. He's done extremely good films, like the movie where he was buried alive. He was extraordinarily good in it. Like you can have movie. Like, yeah, and he has range. He definitely has range, but I think he's playing so much now into his typecast of being a much more likable Chris Pratt. That's all. Like he just stays in that comfort zone now too, and it's so disappointing to see that. And you can tell where the film's going a mile away for a lot of these things. Like to me, it's one of those things like a Ready Player One sort of thing. Like there's potential for a good idea here, but you butcher it and you don't respect the audience. Like who this is kind of geared towards. Like to me, Ready Player One does not respect gamers. And Free Guy does not respect MMO gamers specifically. So for me, it was disappointing, and it's completely unnecessary.
Free Guys is one of those movies where I think when I first saw the trailer, I was like, oh, fun. I see what they're it's clearly a riff on Fortnite or GTA Online, if you will. But I think it's just, as it got delayed. I was like, all right, I'm kind of not, I feel like they've shown so much of the movie. I feel like I don't need to see it at this point. But I've heard like reviews across the board in terms of people that liked it and people that really disliked it. So yeah, it's very interesting. I think I will check out the movie one day, but it's been fascinating to see just how people are just falling on either side of this movie, whether just liking it or downright hating it. So
I think a big part of it kind of goes into again, just where do you fall within the kind of the realm of the subject matter itself for it too. Like I even kind of go back to Mortal Kombat for a second. Again, and like not to make this a whole thing about like DT or anything like that for it, but one of the few times where I felt like I actually actively disagree with Corey on something was he made the comment about like it's a video game, the story's like kind of whatever. Like I've never really agreed with that mentality, because we've now been in the last few generations where storytelling can be the priority and can be a great absolute emotional experience. And Mortal Kombat's story has been very good at times too, and where they do have a lot of character growth and development. Like MKX, apart from its ending, overall was going in some interesting territories with stuff. Mortal Kombat 11 had a really, really good story, and you can do a lot more with these kind of games now too. And I think they're trying to what's the easy way we can do this too. And I think a lot of where people kind of fall on, especially with something like Free Guy, is like how much you're willing to kind of suspend disbelief for it too. Of just like, is this like the real, like when they say like when they cut out of the game world into the real world, how much of that are you willing to accept is like the reality. Like the scene, like there's an iconic scene in Free Guy where like the Chris Evans who's watching the event. No, he's not. Chris Evans would not be watching on his phone at a Starbucks this event. Like like Captain America does not give a rat's ass about this game. So that's the part where I kind of get like where it takes this worldwide phenomenon. Like World of Warcraft is one, like as much as I don't like the game, was a worldwide phenomenon. It never made the news. No, unless it was like somebody who like you see those news stories of like somebody who like played for like 36 hours straight and died from dehydration. Outside of stories like that, it doesn't make sense where it would take over the world like the way it's implied in Free Guy for it. So I think it kind of depends on like how much are you willing to get invested in this kind of like fictionalized universe for it, and also like I think part of it also depends a little bit on your like the idea of like games as a art form, as a storytelling medium overall too, kind of will impact your influence for it too. Like to me, I think if you would watch a Revenant, I think you would get bored because I certainly did too.
Because it's just doing like all the things we so often would people assume are in video games.
Right. And just kind of the assumption of just like, like that's just how all games
are.
What
the culture is like. Yeah.
And it's just like, no, it's not. And again, it's just because of like when I saw your thoughts on the Home Alone film, it's the exact same premise here. Like anybody with half a brain could have solved this in 15 minutes. And the fact that this is still pursuing like this, or their understanding of how MMO servers work is just beyond idiotic. So it's just stuff like that just like anybody who's familiar, even remotely familiar with the industry, the genres that they're kind of poking fun at, would just be like, this is stupid. Like this is absolutely just like you don't understand what you're doing, and you're just like it's kind of like with Mortal Kombat where they're like they throw so many like Easter eggs and gifts at you, like they think that's a film right there. It's like no, it's not. Like story like movies are supposed to have a plot or maybe like a messaging or and nothing else would be fun. And like that's the one thing I think my theme throughout all four of my bottom films is like none of them have any of that. They don't really tell a message. They're not fun, or they're not necessary, or some combination of the three.
There you go, wrapping up very nicely. And I like that we had we did have some common films in our list, but I did like that we had some variety among it too. Some films that we haven't even seen. And some we should definitely avoid. I love that. So no, thank you guys. Any final thoughts? Do you think that 2021 was a good year for film, or do you think it was a bad year, a mixture? I mean, I guess we did, of course, have some good movies, but in terms of like the last several years, and it's weird, the pandemic, of course, things are delayed, but I can only say for myself, and even though I've seen some great movies, definitely I did see more bad movies this year in 2021. I don't know if anyone had any similar experiences as I did.
I thought it was a bad year for Warner Brothers. I'm glad all those movies came out on Max, but in total, I think it was just a year. Like, it wasn't good. It wasn't bad. It could have been better, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I know this year I would definitely watch less films. In the last 2 years, like I'm somebody who loved to go pre-pandemic. I was living in Texas, so I would go to the Draft House every week. And even though I couldn't find like a movie I was hotly anticipating, I would still go to the movies. And I think with COVID now too, like I don't go to the theaters unless it's like something like I'm really willing to risk getting like some flu symptoms for. So like like I'm more now inclined to wait. Like Batman coming out soon, like is what I will risk to go to. It's got to be like kind of that caliber now too. So I'm noticing I'm watching fewer films as a result.
Kind of same here, Vanny, where it's like. I mean, every time I went to the theater like 3 times and I enjoyed it. And I think that's also probably why I enjoyed those films more than if I just watched it at my home. And now that like theaters are closed again and I guess Batman and the Batman's coming out in March, it's like, I'm excited for the Batman, but it's just like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to see it. So.
Yeah. Like I will say I did see fewer movies, but the movies I did see this year that I was really passionate about, like Mitchell vs. the Machines, like I brought me to tears. Green Knight was absolutely outstanding film too. Like we got a great Spider-Man out of this too.
Yep.
Like we're still like I think we're still getting like better films. I think part of the issue might also be too is that marketing and advertising for a lot of these films is starting to dip as a result of not going to the theaters too.
Sure.
So I think general hype that would accompany going to on top of a good film, like you kind of like lose out on it a bit too. I think that's part. I think because the movie going experience has been diminished now too. I think even like general hype for it too. So like as much as I love The Green Knight, like there was no marketing for this film. This could have been a really huge film.
That's true.
But I saw like 2 trailers on YouTube and I was like, all right, this looks good. I'll go see it. And then I still waited until it was on sale at on Vudu and bought it for like $9. And it was I would have probably spent 20 on it. Like I did for fucking Venom for that rental.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that was
money not well spent in that.
I was a Venom defender. I was actually the first film. I was like, it's a dumb film, but like I at least had fun with it. And I watched the second one. I was like, Jesus Christ.
I feel like a lot of people. I mean, clearly a lot of people just like these Venom movies.
Yeah.
You know, there's an audience for him. There's an audience for him. And certainly for that first one, it worked out in hindsight.
It's a guilty pleasure.
But sure, each their own, of course. But yeah, I think it's just like these last 2 years. Of course, they're going to be weaker. With the pandemic and everything and delays and problems with production things. Because I just remember 2019 being like, such an incredible, that was like, my top 10 was, I had another 10 I could have easily said, this is also the best of the year. 2019 was just a really special year in film. And I yearn for that. I think we'll get back to it again. That kind of just a consistent quality level, if you will. But not that we haven't gotten amazing films in 2020. We have. You can listen to our best of lists. Encourage you to do so. People had a wide variety of films on our list, much like they do with this one, which is so unique. I'm glad we heard from so many different people and bring up films that I either haven't seen or I just haven't even heard of. So there's a lot of good and bad this year we might even know about. But thank you guys for joining me on this one. I think for next week, because it was the last one, we'll talk about our favorite live action TV shows of 2021. And then eventually I'll pick your guys' brains and see what you might want to do for the future as we move on into February. But you have that to look forward to. Thank you, Deadpool, Emily. Thank you, Austin, Chris Ayers, Stefan, Duncan Henry, of course, Thunderly Graves, Kaz Faye, M. Xavier, and Vanny Spheres for stopping by. But until next time, chat. Bye. 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 Yay.